Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to another edition of Live from Region 2. We were out last week, busy on the road, and so we could not have hosted the program last week. But I'm happy to see so many of you tuning in so quickly. I must apologize for the late start. So I just want to encourage you to share the live. Share the live. Share it to your friends, to your Facebook friends, to your contacts on Facebook, WhatsApp, YouTube, Twitter, all social media platform. We have a very packed program tonight, and we're making a bit of a late start. I expect at least one or two guests tonight on the program. They've indicated to me that they will be coming in shortly. And so if you can just share the live so that the numbers can continue to build, and we will begin our discussion shortly. Good night, good Rhonda. Good evening. Just sending the hail up to you. Julian Elliott. I see folks from Linden as usual. Good night to all the folks in Linden. Let me see. Bartica. Got at least a number of persons I can recognize from Bartica. I see persons from New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam in the house. Oh, Barbados. Is it Barbados? Yes, folks in the diaspora, folks in the Caribbean, a special good night to you. I'm happy that you're tuning in. Just share the live. Share the live to your friends, to your family, to your colleagues, to your comrades. Just want to say thanks for tuning in and thanks for bearing up with me. Good night to you, Joy Hopkinson, Mavis Henry, Yvette Juna. Is it Juna from Region 8? I know the Junas from Region 8. Miss June Chase. I see Toby. I see a number of persons there. So good night to each and every one of you. Just share the live. We'll begin in another minute or so. We'll begin the program in another minute or so. We have a number of issues to deal with. And as you know, I try to be region specific. It's a Region 2 program. And me being the regional member of parliament, but at the same time, I am the chairman of the People's National Congress Reform. And so I will deal with a number of issues, a number of national issues, and those issues that will obviously affect people in Region 2 and people across the country. There's a lot that has happened over the last week. And so I don't believe that we will get to touch on each and every one of them. Good night, Miss Toby, joining from Port Kaituma. Lots of support up there. Port Kaituma is a stronghold of the PNC, a stronghold of the APNU, and I must say APNU AFC. And I'm happy to see a number of persons from Port Kaituma. I see somebody from Brooklyn. Miss Cameron, June Cameron, good night to you. Good night to you, Miss Wilberg. Good night. People from Den Amstel. Den Amstel, another stronghold of the PNC. Good night to you, Vibert. I see Said Yassin from Saudi, watching from Saudi. So we got folks from all across the country and also in the diaspora. And so I expect my host to come in shortly, but I think Antigua. We got folks from Antigua tonight. Good night, Jacqueline Mitchell. Jacqueline Mitchell, special good night to you. I see people from Blairmont. Uh, yeah, yeah, Blairmont. Good night to you folks. Miss Tom, Rhonda, good night. I see a whole host of people from Brooklyn. Just big up yourself, my Brooklyn people. You guys in the diaspora have been doing an excellent job highlighting the discrimination, highlighting the racism that has been taking place under this PPP government over the last 2 years. So I just want to say, thank you to the people of Brooklyn. Um, a number of activists up there, Rickford Burke being a key person. I'm seeing someone from Nevis, St. Kitts and Nevis. So we got a full house tonight. So, operator, I think that we can begin this program. Okay, CT, Don Baines, Don Baines from CT, that's where. I'm not sure that's where. But people from all over quarantine. I see what is it? Lime Lair, quarantine, Berbice, British Virgin Islands, David Walker. A number of people here tonight. I'm happy to see this broad cross section of people. It says to me that the content of this program has been hitting home. It is relevant to what people are talking about, and it's relevant to the current issues. It's relevant to the concerns of people, and that is what we want to highlight on tonight's program. And every episode, every Thursday night at 6:30. So, operator, if you can, as we wait on our host, our guest, sorry, I would like to. I'm being distracted by some of the people here. People from Riverstone, good night. Miss Barco from Riverstone, good night. Yes, operator, if you can pull up slide number 24, I'll speak to a few issues in Region 2 that is occurring, and then by that time, I guess my host will get on, and we can have some national issues that we will discuss. The next slide, the following slide, sorry. Yes. Now, folks, this is something that I would have placed on my Facebook and page for a couple of weeks now, about 2 weeks now. And it would have been circulating in the media, Kaichur News, Tabuk News, and other news media, but they have since dropped it off. Basically, what it's saying there, I made this post basically to highlight the fact that the grandson of the Region 2 chairman allegedly was involved in a fatal accident, and it is considered as a hit and run accident in the charity housing scheme. And within a few minutes, persons from the charity housing scheme reached out to me and so that would have caused me to highlight this issue, because what was happening is that the relatives had no confidence in the system. They already began to they manipulate the system. The police, from all reports, seem to be unable to carry out their duties at that time. And so I had to make that post and begin to put pressure on them. Now, they would have since impounded the bike that would have been allegedly involved in this accident. And mind you, the fellow is a laborer. His family has reached out to me, reached out to the party, reached out to every one of us in the region. And he's a laborer, and he had some young children that were depending on him. He was the breadwinner, the sole breadwinner of that family. And so it is totally unfair the way his life was snuffed out. and to know that at this point in time, there is no justice for that family. Let me give you a little rundown on what has happened thus far. They would have had a standoff, I'm told, between the family, the regional chairman's family. It is her grandson. And so her family, the regional chairman for region number two, they would have had a standoff with the police. The police subsequently would have impounded the bike. The youngster that would have been involved, the grandson, would have been would have went to the he went to the station in the company of his lawyer, I'm told. And so that is as much as what would have happened in terms of the police action. I cannot confirm that he was arrested, but if he was, then he was quickly released. Now, from that night to now, not very much has happened. And we must ask ourselves why. You know, if this was a common person, they would have been locked away, they would have been tossed away. You had several court sessions at Charity already, and a ruling would have been made, judgment would have been made, justice would have been served or not. But this is the situation in Region 2. You have the grandson of the regional chairman. And so no action is being taken, and this is the way how the PAP operates. You have different laws for different sets of people. Some people are above the law or appear to be above the law, and so that has to be corrected. It has to be corrected. That is why I'm highlighting it here today. Now, I've spoken with the family, and what has happened thus far is that the post-mortem was done, and without the family being able to view the post-mortem, to witness the post-mortem, an uncle of the deceased would have signed up, followed all the procedures, and would have went to the place where the post-mortem was being done, and he was put outside, I'm told, by the police. And so he was unable to witness that post-mortem to see what exactly were the injuries and what were the conclusions from that post-mortem. And that is against the rules, the standard operating procedures of the police force with regards to post-mortem and these kinds of issues. Now, strangely, a relative of the person who allegedly committed the act, the hit and run, the fatal hit and run accident, he was able to witness the post-mortem. Now, it is quite obvious that some kind of collusion must be taking place, or at least an attempt to collude and to change the outcome of this matter, change the course of justice. And I'm saying to them, I'm putting the Guyana Police Force on notice. I'm putting the commander. I've not had the opportunity to meet with him as yet. I went to his office a number of times, but he was always in meetings. And so I intend to meet him on this issue and many other issues within this region. So I'm putting him on notice. I'm putting also the PPP regional chairman on notice that justice will be served. I understand the issue of an accident, but you cannot railroad the victims. You cannot railroad the family of the victims, the children that depend or would have depended on this labor. You can't do that to them. You cannot do that to them. And I want to bring to the public's attention that under the APNU AFC, these things were not occurring. And if they did, then they were dealt with in the proper way. The police knew that they could not have operated in this manner. And I'm not trying to blame the police here. The blame has to be placed squarely at the feet of the PPP regime. Squarely at their feet. Because it is them who are dictating and controlling and dominating the Guyana Police Force. From the president right down, from the commander-in-chief right down, excuse me. And so I'm putting them on notice. Now, Another move, they would have been trying to make another move. I'm told by close relatives of the family that the, the grandson of the regional chairman is about 17 years of age. And he would have, this is a normal practice. He always rides very recklessly on the road. In fact, one elderly person said she spoke with him just days before that, warning him of his conduct. And his response was most shocking. He asked her if she knows who is his grandmother. Who is his grandmother? So this is the attitude we're getting from this family. And they have been the most controversial in this region. Velma and her family has been the most controversial. You would recall when one of the sons would have allegedly slapped the sergeant, the station sergeant, not just a sergeant, not any sergeant, the station sergeant of the Charity Police Station, as soon as they came to power. There are a number of other issues. There are a number of other land issues that people are complaining. You would have seen the issue with one of our sons and herself with what's his name, the guy from down Charity River Dam, where they allegedly attempted to throw him in a corner and take over the riverfront. There are a number of issues that these people are getting involved in, and whether they are whether they actually whether they would have actually committed these acts or not, their names are being called. And so this is the case. So the grandson said that, ask the woman if you know who is my grandmother. Well, we know who she is. She's the regional chairman. And regional chairpersons change from time to time. They change with elections. And I hope that the people of Region 2 are looking at their conduct. And when they get to the next elections, they will decide. Local government elections are coming. General and regional elections are coming. And they will have to decide if this is this should be the conduct of the regional chairman and her family. If they are happy or they're satisfied with this kind of conduct. And I've learned a number of things, other things in this case. Now, instead of prosecuting this boy, what they are now seeking to do is to force Child Protection Agency or the Child Care Agency to deal with this matter. The probation officers in them, they are trying to put the case into their hands so that he is not prosecuted as an adult. Now, I know of a number of cases, dozens of cases, where 16-year-olds, where 15-year-olds have been committed to stand trial as an adult. And so I see nothing wrong with that. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. This is a life we're talking about. The family, the life of this family will forever be changed. The children that are depending on this gentleman, he is no more, so what will become of them? And so I thought that it was necessary to share this with the public. And as the regional MP, I am vowing to continue to follow this matter, continue to expose them, continue to expose the corruption of the PPP, continue to expose the bullyism of the PPP here in Region 2 and at the national level. I intend to meet with this commander very shortly and to trash out this matter, because everybody knows me in this region. I don't deal with these things. I don't take them lightly. I go out there and I represent. And so that is why people have been making contact with me and requesting that I pick up this matter. And so I'm putting them on notice once again. Operator, if you can pull up the next slide. Now, this is another matter that involves the police, and it involves the higher powers, the people in the corridors of power, the government, the big boys, friends, family, and favorites of the PPP. Now, what you're seeing on your screen there is the flyer for a new taxi service. Some people might feel it's the first taxi service for Region 2, but it is not. But it is one of the most popular taxi services that would have come out in recent times. This taxi service is probably there for a couple of about 3 months now or so. It's located in Henrietta, just a stone throw away from the police. And I am told by the people who run this taxi service, and mind you, they are young men, very young men in their 20s, in their 30s. They have a diverse team. You have Indo-Guyanese, you have Afro-Guyanese, you have mixed race, you have indigenous Guyanese. All are working at this taxi service. And I've been looking at this taxi service because Esquimo is a small place, and it has been growing over the last couple of months. They moved from about 2 to 3 taxis all the way to about 20 taxis now. And I'm very proud of these young men who I think would have come up with an idea and invested in something. And, they're providing employment, providing a service for the people of Region 2 and for the township of Anna Regina. Now, from the moment, and this is where the discrimination lies, this is where, the PPP always try to say that there is no discrimination, and they want us to prove that there is discrimination every single day. Every single day we get reports of discrimination. Every single day. And it's always about friends, family, and favorite. People that are aligned with the PPP. And then they try to use the police to carry out their nasty agenda. Now, this taxi service, the first complaint I received was a few months ago when you had a different command, the previous commander. The commander went out there to the taxi service and told them in no uncertain terms that they had to move. Now, I don't know where the commander got those powers from to go and instruct a legitimate business to remove from where they're operating. And so the proprietors called me, and I said to them, tell that commander that Shurwayne Holder, the member of parliament for this region, said that they should not move, and to say to him that he has no jurisdiction in such a matter. The only way he can have jurisdiction is if he is enforcing some kind of rule from the council. If the council decide that they don't want them there, they revoke permission, he can come, they can ask the police to have them removed. And so he had no jurisdiction. So they told him exactly that. And he backed off for a few days. He subsequently came back. He came back and he said to them that they had private hire cars working there. Now that is ridiculous. It is ridiculous. This taxi service is a stone throw away from the Anna Regina police station. And there is no way that these young men would seek to break the law right in the compound of the police station. And so they rejected that claim. And what they said to him was that, in fact, they produced their list of the taxis that were registered with the service. They were all hire car plated, registered as hire car. And so he had to back off again. What I told them to say to him was that let him put his officer out there to see which private hires are working. Because this taxi service is in the vicinity of a supermarket, and obviously people come to pick up their family, relatives, whatever. And you can't blame the taxi service for that. But that was an excuse. And I know the reason why they're fighting down these people. These young men, the PPP talking about jobs. Jagdeo come to Essequibo to Region 2 and said he will give 800 jobs, and so far we see about 14. In addition to the $40,000 that can't do anything for people. These are young people that would have created their own employment, and they're trying to fight them down. Well, we will fight this fight. We will fight this fight. I will stand with these young men and fight this fight with them the same way I would have fought against them with the vendors. We won't allow this to go down like that. Now, that commando went away. But you know, they got a way that is pass it. They pass it on to whoever come. So the new guy come in, and I'm not accusing him of anything, but I have to say what has transpired so far. So the new guy came in. Now, last week at maybe about 10, 11 o'clock in the night, they have a 24-hour taxi service. And operator, you can pull up the next slide. The guys would have, they were in their base there, and you can see it. They were in there about 10 to 12 sometime in the night, and they heard an explosion. And while they were debating about what it was, some were thinking that it was a squib, some were saying that it had to be a gunshot. 45 minutes after that, the police walked over from the station. Pull up the next slide. Let me show the viewers where this taxi service is. Look, you're seeing the Anna Regina police station. You could literally pelt a brick and hit the station. Now, tell me something. These people would fire off a gun in the taxi base there for fun, just a stone throw away from the police station. They walk across from the police station under whoever instructions, came to the taxi service and asked. The guys there directed them further down the road where they heard the explosion. They went down there. Whoever pointed them back in the other direction. When they came back, they demanded that they search the taxi base. They demanded that the boys there close down their service and go home. Arrested a number of them, demanded to see their documents. This is 12 o'clock in the night, you know. This is 12 o'clock in the night. They didn't search the big boys down the road where the gunshot came from. They didn't search them. They didn't worry to search them. They searched these young boys that just trying to make a hustle, trying to make a living. We know the cost of living story. We know everything about it and how it's affecting our people in this region and nationally. And they didn't worry to search them big boys. They come down here, demanded us to search. They were allowed to search. They found nothing. Arrested the proprietor, took him over to the station, demanded documents. He hadn't all the documents there at that time, and they carried on. They even told them that they're harboring criminals and all sorts of things. And they got to shut down their taxi service. They came up, they said to them that the taxi created some kind of traffic hazard. Now, look, the people of Region 2 know where the traffic hazard is, or where they are. In front of the supermarkets, where the big boys are, that is where you have the traffic hazards. That is where you have the traffic congestion. In front of those big supermarkets. I'm not trying to cast blame on the supermarket. I'm simply trying to explain the reality on the ground. In front of the supermarkets and the big stores, that is where you have the traffic congestion. I've never seen an issue with this taxi service. They're trying to claim that the taxi service is on a turn. You got a damn whole mall on a turn. You have a mall on the turn, but this is how the PPP operates. The big boys could put on a taxi service. They could put on a mall wherever. and that is okay. They don't find any fault with it. But here you have some young boys, young men, Indo Guyanese, Afro Guyanese, indigenous Guyanese, making an honest living, and you got to fight them down. Well, as a young person, I am going to fight this fight with them. I've already attempted to meet the commander once. In fact, twice I was there, and they had some excuses for me. But before the week is out, I'm certain that I will have to meet him. And there are a number of other issues within this region. But tonight, I'm trying to focus on some local issues as well as some national issues. So I'm hoping that guest my guest is in. Oh, you're there. You're there. All right. Let me say good night to Elson Lowe, economist, young, brilliant mind. It's always a pleasure to have you on this program, Elson. You being uh, having roots in Region 2.
Yeah.
So I know that you can relate to the issues here. You understand the dynamics here. You understand the layout of the coast and all the issues that um, we are facing with here in Region 2. Operator, you could pull up the first slide so we get straight into it. You know, Elson is an economist. Elson, if you can just say to the public, give them a little about yourself while we pull up this slide.
Yes, well, I good evening, everyone. Good to be on always. So I provide economic advice to lead the opposition. I also speak on oil and gas matters on behalf of the opposition. So I have been fortunate to have that opportunity. And if you look at the paper today, I made some comments about the government is trying to tell local companies that want to participate in the oil and gas sector, want to supply, the needs of those various Exxon or the other oil and gas companies. Yeah, so the government is trying to say that they have to temper their expectations. Guyanese companies will not be able to do X, Y, and Z, so we have to be aware of that. Now, that is to me the opposite way to approach this. Not at all what the government should say. They should say, while we understand that Guyanese companies may not have the capacity right now, we are doing everything in our power and we will continue to devote more resources to build capacity and to help local companies to compete in every single area that they can that is served by local content. The PP is quite happy to have Guyanese take second fiddle, get the raw end of the deal, not actually benefit from all of these opportunities, so long as they and the friends, family, and favorites can get through. So if you're an average business and you maybe don't have that level of capital, they don't have a particular interest in you succeeding. They're focused on their friends, family, and favorites. They're focused on those who are already wealthy in the society and how they can make them wealthier. So as a result, that's one of the areas that I think we had to speak up on. Another one is, and this is obvious, what the operator is putting up is this question of the salary increases. So this 50% that they claim that they never said that everybody in Guyana saw. uh, they keep walking the same
Photoshop,
back.
Photoshop, Photoshop.
Photoshop.
But Elsa, if I, sorry, but you
Yes.
said something before that triggered my mind. Why do you think they're trying to temper expectations? I can recall for the very first budget they were very boastful. In fact, before that, during the
Mhm.
campaign, they made these
Yeah.
lofty promises.
Yeah.
And they talk about resilience when they
Yeah.
when they brought the budget and some other colorful words, and now they seem to be backpedaling, and
Yeah.
that brings us to this slide that is on the screen: the 50% increase for public servants.
Yeah. Yeah.
We would
Well,
have.
here's the thing that we want to help viewers to understand. Viewers, this 50% here is a bare minimum. This country has grown by about 60% this year. Last year it was 20 something percent, I believe. Next year it's expected to be 27%. The government budget this year alone nearly went up 50%. So when they come to us to say that, oh, the 50% is unrealistic, they are so far from reality. So far from reality. When they come to tell people that they give me a 8% and they increase the government budget, the total budget by 50%, you got to be asking yourself, what kind of madness you're looking at? Because it strikes me that if the government budget is 50% more, in order for you to be spending the same amount on public servants, it's not a 50% increase they were supposed to get. So I find all this to be ridiculous. I find an 8% to be a slap in the face. I think that the 8% will barely cover the increase in the cost of living that we've seen in Guyana. Barely. In fact, it may actually be less than the increase in cost of living this year. So it is no increase at all. But what I would say to round it up is, why are they tempering expectations? Why are they claiming and playing as if there's no money and there's nothing that can be done, even though it is obvious to anyone who is looking at what's going on with the oil and gas sector that the country has got finances available? It's because if you give the money people what it is that they deserve, if you give people what it is that they deserve, then you're gonna have any left back to thief? No, all the money's gone.
That is well said. And I have another point I might want to add. No, you
Yeah.
see, when people, and I'm thinking a little political here as a politician, when people become comfortable with their standard of living, with their wages, they pay less interest in the politicians. They might be a potential for you to, for some of your supporters to drop off, or that interest in getting out to the polls and that kind of thing. So you gotta keep them in check. You got to keep them wanting something. I always use the cane, the sugar workers, as an example. The way how the PPP always have them, you give them a little bite, and then you cut them off. And so next year again, every time they rail up, you give them a little bite, and then and that's it. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely correct. In terms of the corruption, we'll get to that. I believe I have a slide somewhere down the line there. To There's
Yeah.
something very alarming,
Well,
and
I
we'll
get
get
your point. They want to keep people dependent on them. They don't want
yeah,
people to be able to genuinely improve in their lives. They prefer to keep you dependent. This
yeah,
little dribble of 7% and
oh,
8%, that is to keep to string you along.
yeah. Could the
There's
operator pull up the slide while Elson is speaking? Just move to
Yes.
the next slide. Okay, that's the 8%. The 8% salary increase. Um, this works out to what, Elson? 6,000, 7,000.
Yeah, I mean
What does it mean for people, for
yeah,
public?
well, it depends obviously on your salary scale, but for the lowest income public service workers, it'll work out to about $72,000. For those who are earning 900,000 and more, which might be ministers and so on, it works out to about 850, $860,000. But when you work it out and you look at it, for those at the highest end, the higher end of the income scale, their increase is 12 times as much as those at the bottom of
Mhm,
the
mhm.
scale.
Yeah,
12
You
times as much.
you raise a critical point, because I can recall last year when we went through the budget, and they had that 7%, and we would have done the analysis. We recognized that while the average public servant got $3,000 to $3,500, Irfan Ali increased his pay by $150,000.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so is that the case again? It seems to be the
Yes.
same, the
Well,
identical thing again.
the problem is this, and it is an intentional thing that PvP keeps doing because we did not do this. We had an adjustment. We would say that for the lower income workers, we'll give them a bigger increase, and the higher income folks, You give them less of an increase because low income folks are the one who really need the additional funds, who are the ones who are suffering the most under the cost of living crisis. Those are the people who need it. When you give an across the board increase, all the way across the board, those at the top getting an 8%, just like those at the bottom getting an 8%. What you do is you disproportionately benefit those at the top because now they are going to get a huge amount because their salary was already high. So 8% of 100,000 salary, is just 8,000, but 8% of $1 million salary, you're talking about $80,000. So
lot of
this is
money.
it's a lot of money. And so what has happened is those at the top are getting 12 times as much as those at the bottom, which is, to my mind, ridiculous. Now the
You're
other
widening the gap. You're widening the gap, Elson. Widening the gap, further widening the gap. When at this time we are supposed to be closing that gap. We're supposed to be
exactly,
bringing up those that are less fortunate. Those,
exactly,
the opposition constantly preaches that we will introduce a livable wage, and
yes.
we're advocating for it. Even as we're out of government, we have been advocating for the government to
Yeah.
give people a livable wage.
Well, one
Operator, if
thing
we
that
can
I would
move to
build
the
off
next
of,
slide.
I'd build off of
Ah,
that in saying that, we had mentioned earlier in the year that we needed to see, first of all, a 10% immediate increase. This is during the height of the cost living crisis with the war in Ukraine and whatnot. And then the overall increase, we wanted to see around about a 25% increase. All right, an overall 25% increase is what we were saying. The reason that we mentioned this is because we saw that food inflation, the cost of food from December of last year to December of this year would be around about 25%. So you've seen, and I know your viewers are feeling this, at the market, the prices have gone up and up and up and up to the point that many people are crying out. And so when we call for a large increase, especially for those at the lower end of the income scale, it is because we recognize that those are the people who are suffering the most in this cost of living crisis. And we want to make sure that viewers understand because lower income people spend a larger proportion of their budget on food. On food. Remember, if you're higher income, you can be spending your budget on all sorts of things, car, jewelry, all sorts of things. But if you're low income, you're spending a lot of your money on food, right? Now, if food prices go through the roof, that means that it is lower income people who are most impacted. And so what we're saying is how can you not recognize that those are the people that need the big adjustment? Those are the people that need to have a 25% adjustment and act on that. Instead, what they've done is ignore that altogether and give those at the top the same percentage increase as those at the bottom. They have no interest in the fact that you're suffering in the cost of living crisis. They have no interest in the fact that you can barely feed yourself as a public servant on the lower end. They don't care about that. What they care about is that they can give themselves a nice increase. The PvP can give itself a nice increase and get close to $1 million, many of them,
mhm, mhm.
when Christmas time comes, so they can go shopping, they can enjoy themselves. Meanwhile, you scrambling to try and put some food on the table for your family.
Now, Elson, could you give us an idea of the kind of cash that the government would have garnered from our oil
Yeah.
uh, thus far, and
Well, I give
maybe
you
you can say for 2022?
I give you two perspectives on it. The first perspective is that in the third quarter, Guyana got 491, 493 million US. In just 3 months, we got around about 500 million US. Now, folks,
Million US.
US, folks, that's a
We,
100 billion Guyana dollars. This country made 100 billion Guyana dollars in 3 months.
just the other day, our budget was 100 billion. Just the
You
other
know,
day,
in 3 months. Now,
and they
on
made it
top
in
of
three
that,
months. A
on
whole
top of
year
that,
money in 3 months.
I'm telling
Mm.
you, that's a huge amount of money. Now, to help your viewers to understand this even more, that much money could build two skeletons. That's how much money you're talking about. Could build two skeletons.
I'd say to you that we don't want another scale done.
The first
No,
one
just
wasn't
just
good.
going on the lighter side. We don't want a white telephone, but go ahead.
Right? But the point being, when you think back about scale, and that was the biggest investment the country had ever made up to that point. And it was a big deal. Everybody said, oh, this is going to cost a lot of money, whatnot. But we are
Um,
making that much money every month and a half.
Nelson, if the operator can pull up back that comment, I saw an interesting comment. It's Anissa Peace.
Yes.
Okay, okay. For can Peace, she's saying, given the scale of inflation, etc., a 25% increase, lower end salary scale is reasonable, equitable, and fair. This was likely advice of Jack Dio. However, the buck stops at the Muslim president Mohammed Irfan Ali. He is responsible. I, what are your thoughts about that? The entire comment.
Well, I'd say is the 25%, just to help your viewers understand something. We gave, without oil revenues, a 26% increase. Without oil revenues, we gave that. So these folks come in with 8%. It's like a joke. And they have all the oil revenue. So I mean, for the president and so on to be saying this, I think it is really unfortunate for the country that we're seeing this. But without oil, you could do a 26% increase. So now that you have oil, you would expect that you'd be able to match that increase or even do better, not do worse. And that is what we're seeing. Measly 8%. Now, to build on what we were talking about in terms of the amount of money that the country has made, the country is expected really to end the year with around about 1.2 billion US. We would have made 1.2 billion US. So I think that's 240 billion Guyana dollars. But of that 1.2 billion, do you know that 300 million US was money that we did not expect to make, that we got as a result of the high oil price? That's 60 billion Guyana dollars of unexpected revenue from this high oil price due to the war in Ukraine and so on. So the country made a lot of money, extra, more than it expected. But has that money found its way to people, to the average Guyanese? If you are only giving people a few $1,000s on the salary, and if you add the whole thing up, is a $72,000. If you add up all 12 months, it comes out to 72,000. Now, that 60 billion, folks, that huge amount, works out to about 300,000 per household. So you get 300,000 per household extra funds, unexpected funds, but you're only giving people a 72,000. Where is the rest of the money? Where is the $230,000 of additional funds? What happened to that money? What I think happened to that money is that it's going to be in next year's budget, but they're going to put it in a way where they can find a way to steal it. So instead of giving guys,
We'll get to that. I have a slide somewhere down, but operator, if you could pull up slide number 12. I think it's slide number 12.
yeah, yeah.
Just
Instead of
um
instead of giving Guyanese what it is that they really should be getting to cushion the cost of living issue, they hold them back the money. They hold them back the money, and
no,
you have to ask the question. Yeah,
I'm pulling this up there to show, and this is from MP Ganesh Maipal from the opposition. And he's saying in 2015, the APNU FC moved the minimum wage from 39,000. He's reminding us,
yeah,
the PVP is so barefaced that they go out there and they tell people that APNU didn't do anything.
telling you.
APNU didn't do anything. I saw, is it Mark Phillips? One of them commenting on the leader of the opposition, the press conference the other day, and or some other show that he was on, and saying that said that he fumbled and tried to give an impression that APNU didn't give the kind of salary increase. So that is why I decided to put this up on
Yeah,
the screen there, because every single year, what we did in 2015, what we did in 2016, look, we gave a 10% salary increase. These guys give it with oil money, 2 years,
yep,
2 years, Elson,
yep,
360,000 barrel every single day,
yeah.
and they're offering our public servants 8% at this time. An
It's ridiculous.
absurdity. It
It's
is an
utterly ridiculous.
absurdity.
It's utterly
But
ridiculous.
but but they try to target a few persons in the discipline forces. And what were your thoughts about that? Because look, I saw this thing was well staged. This thing was well planned.
Yeah.
This thing was well planned. They had videos. They had videos. 1 second. Yeah, they had videos showing officers celebrating, allegedly celebrating. And so when you look at it, they had videos while this thing going on. It is as though police officers had no work to do. They all gathered to listen to this thing. I don't know where in the world
Yeah.
that occurs. Where
Well,
in the world that would be a national emergency, because that was well staged in my view, Chelsea.
it was definitely staged, and I would say this: the whole thing collapsing on itself when they said that for police officers with 10 or more years of experience, you would now be paid $115,000. You have 10 years experience, and they are proud to come and tell you that you're gonna get $115,000. 10 years experience. I mean, you have to ask yourself if they're not shame. It is shameful that you are saying that somebody who has spent 10 years on the surface got to be making 115,000 and you acting like you're proud of that. That's crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
sounds
yeah,
so
yeah,
difficult. And
yeah,
this person's putting their life
yeah.
on the line. We also saw
Exactly.
a police officer being attacked, beaten, attacked by a citizen there. Police officers are putting their lives on the line. They are doing things that, many of us would not have the courage to do. And yet, you are telling people that they can't even after 10 years carry home a little 120. Mercy, man. I mean,
Exactly. Pull up. I'm just trying to say to the operator to pull up. Ask him to pull up slide number four, 4 and 5. If we can pull that, yes, four there. So the opposition would have put out a statement exactly what you're saying there, about the pay increase, and then we would have seen pictures of the in the next slide, pictures of the staged activity, they always force these guys to do the most hilarious of things. When you see a man celebrating a 6,000 or in this economy, you know that it's planned. And I think I saw in one of the videos the commissioner is there videoing too.
oh,
This thing was well staged. Well staged. It's always about a show is always about a PR for these people, and they're under pressure because of how they treat supporters of the PNC, supporters of the APNO AFC. They're under pressure and they're conscious of it, and so they try to stage these things to say they're doing for everybody. And while these fellas get a $10,000, Irfan Ali takes home, how much money?
I think,
He takes
I
home
think,
in excess
well,
in excess of $150,000 at
yes,
least.
I believe his increases. If you add up his increase, it's something like 2.2 million he should be taking home, an increase at the end of this year. So he's getting, 2 million Guyana dollars he's taking home at the end of the year. Whereas, folks on the lower end here, just a 72,000. Really, really painful to see
Yeah.
something like that. You know, um, and
Wilson, sorry,
no, no,
are you finished?
yeah,
Or you're gonna excuse me here because we got so much to discuss, and
sure.
I'm trying to get. We got so many slides. We got about 30 different things to talk about, but I know the time is going, so I'm trying to touch a bit. I will invite you again. I will invite you again. Slide number 13, I believe it is, with the press statement. I just wanted to get your comment on the first point in the press statement. No, not that one. We'll get to that one. Not till there. 3 slides from. We had the police one up there just now. 4, so we had 5, 6, 7, 8. Sorry about slide number 8. Press conference.
Yeah.
No, it's a little down from there. It's a little down from there. The other two, one or two below that. Next one. No, no, two more down, down a bit, down a bit. Yeah, right there. Now the right there, right there. Now the summary, the PPP. You guys are saying that the PPP, or the opposition is saying rather, that the PPP does not have the well-being of the people at heart. It has announced no major initiative to end poverty, expand the middle class, and to reduce inequality. I wanted to get your take on that.
Well, one of the things I like to remind people about is that the PUP has been totally silent on the issue of poverty and inequality in Guyana. Totally silent. When they listed their priorities, national development priorities, they talked about diversifying from oil. They talked about education. They talked about health care. Those are all fine enough areas and things that we do indeed need to focus on. But how could you not mention poverty alleviation and fighting inequality in a society in which inequality is becoming extreme, and in a society where you have in excess really of 50% of people living below the poverty line? How can you ignore the major issues of the day? But it to me is easy for you to ignore the major issues of the day if you just don't really care about them. And so they have literally not even said anything, not said a word about poverty and inequality this whole time because they don't particularly care. On the other hand, we have put out several proposals about how we're going to fight poverty, how we're going to deal with inequality in this country. We've talked about removing income tax for those on the lower end of the income scale. We've talked about salary top ups to help people who are not earning as much to to live and work and not be working in poverty. We have talked about student stipends so that while you're studying, you're able to get some money to help you along until you finish your studies and can get a better job. We have talked about all of these things within the framework of a livable income because we believe that we must tackle poverty and inequality in this country head on. We must address these issues. If we just leave these things alone, inequality will spiral out of control, poverty will not be addressed, and Guyanese will end up at the short end of the stick, end up really, not in their society, not having the best jobs and having the best opportunities. Rather, people will come into the country who are well educated and so on, and they'll be able to get the jobs and opportunities, and Guyanese who have not been able to have those same chances to get educated, they will end up not being able to make progress. But the PvP, I think, is perfectly happy with that circumstance because they don't really think that they're not genuine in the way that we are genuine. We immediately said, yeah, with this new leadership in the PNCR, we immediately said, listen, something needs to be done about poverty and inequality in this country. We need to address this issue head on. And what we also said is, we believe that in the process of addressing this issue, we can help Guyanese to be incentivized to go and study, to be incentivized to go back to school, to be incentivized to finish studying at high school, get their maths and English, get their CXC passes, and not drop out. This is all part of our framework to move the country forward because we recognize the types of problems that an oil and gas economy will face and that Guyana is facing. PPP still does not recognize the challenges that oil and gas economies face. They're running the country as if we got more revenue from timber or something. They still don't seem to be
Yeah,
clear on what's going on in Guyana.
yeah. If you can pull up the slide number 13, 13. Just a few slides from that. 14. Let's go to 14, then 13. And this is precisely what you were talking about.
Yeah.
The leader, time and time again, has been singing this song, hitting home this point that Guyanese need a livable wage, a livable income. And once we take government again, this is what we will provide. And I'm happy that you would have expanded on it a bit more, Elson. And it is surprising that the PPP is not listening. They're not seeking this advice, you could be man enough to stand up and say, here, look, this is a good idea. Because as a government, that is what you're supposed to do. If people have good ideas out there, you you're expected at minimum to take that from them, or to work with good policies, for example, that the previous government had. Take the good ones, the ones that you would, you as a government, you define your own strategy, your own policy direction, etc. But it must be in line with development for all Guyanese. And so it within that context, you're expected to look at policies of the previous administration, those that are good policies, and to develop them. As a government, now you have more money than any other government before, whether APNU, PNC, PPP government. You have more money than any other government before, and the general expectation is that you will, at minimum, people need a livable wage, and the kind of assistance that will see their lives being drastically improved. We're currently in a situation, a very bad situation here in terms of the economy, in terms of inflation, and they seem not to grasp that. They seem not to grasp that. And I agree with you completely, because it has to be. It must be that they don't care. Jagdeo is supposed to be an economic wizard. Ashni Singh is supposed to be some kind of an accounting wizard. And nothing seems to be going right for them. The direction that they're going in suggests that they simply do not care about the ordinary people in this country. What they are focused on are friends, family, and favorites. And that is very disappointing, as a young Guyanese, as a young professional, Elson.
Yeah, that's at the heart of it, is that if you were genuine, you would adopt these policies, you would take this stance. These policies are all already affordable. You could already afford the policies that we're advocating today. But what has happened is that in order for you to afford those policies, you can't be stealing all the money. You can't do both. You cannot afford to do these kinds of policies as well as steal at the level that they like to steal. And so they've made a conscious choice that them, their friends, family, and favorites are going to be the beneficiaries of this, and that Guyanese. More broadly, especially lower income Guyanese, you're just gonna have to, as we say in Guyana, bear your chafe, and they're very happy to let that be the case. It is important for Guyanese to recognize, sometimes when you see things that people do, it comes from incompetence. But there's other times when it comes from a lack of a genuine interest in Guyanese success. And when I see that they ignore the idea that people should be able to have a basic livable income, that poverty is something that you have to address, that inequality is something you have to address, I can only say to myself, everybody in Guyana knows that this is a serious issue. For you to pretend that it is not a serious issue, it's not that you don't know, it's that you choose not to do anything about it, it's that you don't care. And that is ultimately the difference, I would say, between the PNC and between the coalition and the PVP, is that we care. We have demonstrated through our policies that we get it. They get it, but they don't care.
Elson, we're out of time because I don't want to clash with Sherrod's program. But I want a quick point. If you can pull up slide number 17. Slide number 17, just about 4 slides from that. Now, there you have the Auditor General, Elson, handing over the reports, his reports to the Speaker of the National Assembly. And the first thing that jumped out at us was the revelation that hundreds of millions of dollars are unaccounted for
Yeah.
under the flood relief program. Now, you would recall this is something that we have been saying all along. When we looked at the process, when we saw the discrimination in it, when we saw the corruption, when we saw PPP cronies, PPP appointees sharing cash, moving with cash in hand, we knew We knew that this would have been the result. And if you recall in 2020, under pressure from us, Ali, the 17th of December, he made a call he gave the Auditor General an instruction to audit this thing and to produce a report, but that never occurred. And to me, that was just a front. But now we see it coming. It had to come forward because the Auditor General obviously has to do his work. So when he get to that 2020 stage, this would have been the discovery. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the idea that hundreds of millions can be unaccounted for should trouble any Guyanese. The idea that it is potentially hundreds of millions that may have been stolen. And that's really what they were trying to figure out right now, if that money has been stolen. That should trouble Guyanese. When we say that the reason that you can't get these types of raises that you're supposed to get, the reason that you can't see money spent in areas to benefit the people is because PUP is stealing money. We have to look at these types of hundreds of millions missing and ask ourselves if this is a perfect example of that. So I'm looking forward to further statements from the Auditor General as he tries to track down these funds. I'm not optimistic, but I'm looking forward to see if he's going to be able to
I
find
was
these.
just about to ask you how. That was my next question. How optimistic are you that, or how confident are you that the Auditor General will find something here to expose someone?
I'll tell you
You know?
something that I find to be funny. I think that all Guyanese accept the PUP does teeth bad. All Guyanese accept that as true. The question,
Synonymous with Tipen. The
yeah,
PVP,
the
are we
question
saying
is
that
whether
is synonymous?
the question is whether that's cool with you. Everybody accepts the teeth.
Well, it shouldn't be, because in this time, with this tough, hard time, to lose 400, I see there, and if the operator can pull up the next slide, 427 or something like that, over 400. The next slide, 427 something $1 million. The other one, the next one. Yes, somewhere at the bottom, a couple of lines there. It's just to the left hand side. 476 million that wasn't disbursed. That
Yeah,
wasn't disbursed.
yeah,
You had the sum of 8 point something billion.
yeah.
There they spent about 6 point something. Well, they issued about 6.7.6, and they could only account for 7.124. $476 million. And I don't think, Guyanese, this is acceptable. But I say to people that every time the PVP is in government, we see this happening. They're worried. They're obviously worried about the next election. They're halfway through their term. They, with all the money that they've gotten from oil, they have not successfully shaken off the opposition, although they tried to give that impression, and Gail trying to say, oh, Norton is this, and Norton is a small buyer, small fish, or whatever. But every day they have somebody tracking Norton. Every single day they have some article on Norton and the opposition. So they have not been able to shake us off. We've been exposing them, exposing their corruption, exposing their discrimination. We've been fighting them in the courts. They have been fighting against the petition and the two petitions, and they're trying to use their advantage in PR and all these things. But at the end of the day, they've not been largely successful in doing it. The opposition is still there. We're still in the game, and
Well,
so
I tell your viewers a couple of things. The first is when you're arguing with the PvP support and you say, but the PvP does thief, they don't ever come back and say, no, we don't thief. They never respond like that. They say, oh, y'all also thief or something. They never say, no, we don't thief.
Yeah.
Because
That is true. That is true. They don't, because that is a known.
good,
That is a
good.
known. So they're
And
hardcore supporters. That is what
good.
you will
And
get from them.
the other thing I would say is this. Sometimes, if you come across a young person that might be swayed by them, What I ask the person is, all right, but where's your sports car? Where's your Ferrari? Where's your Maserati?
Yep,
And
yep,
they
yep,
immediately, you can tell that in their mind, they immediately realize the country will never reach its full potential under the PPP.
yeah,
It
yeah,
will
yeah.
never reach
Never,
its full
never,
potential.
never. The opportunities. Look, I, as a young person, as a young leader, and as a senior leader, but being young, I would say that we're not without our faults. No government is, but you have to examine our track record against the track record of the PPP. PPP is for their friends, families, and cronies. They are highly corrupt. They discriminate. And that is the reality. That these are known facts that all Guyanese should be aware of by now. And when you compare it to how we managed, um, there's a vast difference. There's vast policy difference. There's vast difference in terms of governance and the style of governance. Elson, the Sherrod program is coming up, so I don't want to, encroach on his program. And so I'd like to do this again. As I said, I had 30 slides. We've just touched the tip of the iceberg. We tried to rush through so many of these issues. It was a pleasure having you on this program as a young economist, myself being a young man from Region 2. And as young leaders, we have to continue to do programs like these, continue to expose the government for what they're doing. And, it is my hope that people will look beyond race. You and I are both diverse. We come from a diverse culture, diverse ethnic background, and so we can relate to all Guyanese as young people. And it was a pleasure having you, and
Always, always
I hope
happy to
that
come on.
you'll come again sometime soon.
Always happy to come on. I would only hope that we would be able to talk about something more positive, but unfortunately, PvP just keeps sharing this nonsense. So we got to keep calling them out on it.
All right, folks. That's it. That's it for our program tonight. That's it for live from Region 2. Please tune in again next week, same time, same channel, 6:30, where we will have another edition of Live from Region 2. I trust that you would have been informed, you would have enjoyed this segment of the program, and I do look forward to you tuning in again next week, Thursday, same time, same place. Thank you, and good night.